The biggest lie they ever told you is that you need other people's approval to be successful. They convinced you that fitting in was more important than standing out, that being liked was more valuable than being right, that following the crowd was safer than following your conscience. But every person who ever changed the world, every individual who ever made a real difference, every leader worth following had to first learn one uncomfortable truth. The crowd is usually wrong. The majority is often mediocre. And the popular path almost always leads to average results. The very people telling you to play it safe, to blend in, to not rock the boat, are the same people who have never accomplished anything worth remembering. You know what separates the extraordinary from the ordinary? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even hard work. It's the willingness to stand alone when everyone else is sitting down. It's the courage to say no when the whole world is screaming yes. It's the strength to walk your own path when millions are following the highway to mediocrity. There once was a lighthouse keeper named Thomas who worked on a rocky cliff overlooking one of the most dangerous coastlines in the world for 30 years. Every single night he climbed those spiral stairs and lit that beacon. Storm or calm, sick or healthy, he never missed a night. The townspeople thought he was crazy. They said, Thomas, technology has moved on. Ships have radar now, GPS systems. They don't need your old lighthouse anymore. The harbor master even came to shut it down, calling it unnecessary and outdated. But Thomas knew something they didn't. He had studied the patterns. He had watched the ships. He knew that when the storms came fierce and the electronic systems failed, that light was the difference between life and death. So he stood alone. He kept lighting that beacon while everyone mocked his commitment to what they called ancient methods. Then came the night of the great storm, the worst hurricane in 50 years. Power grids failed. Communication towers collapsed. GPS satellites lost signal. In the chaos and darkness, 200 passengers on a cruise ship found themselves being pushed toward those deadly rocks by winds they couldn't fight. The captain was blind, his instruments dead, his hope fading. Then he saw it. One light, one beacon, one man who had refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. Thomas saved 200 lives that night by standing alone when it mattered most. This is what I want you to understand about your life. Your greatest strength doesn't come from following the crowd. It comes from your willingness to stand apart from it. Every single person who has ever made a real difference in this world had to first make the decision to be different from this world. They had to choose conviction over comfort, purpose over popularity, truth over trends. You see, when you stand alone, something powerful happens inside you. The noise of other people's opinions fades away. The pressure to conform loses its grip. You start hearing your own voice clearly for the first time. You begin to see your own path instead of just following someone else's footsteps. You discover strength you never knew you had because you were too busy borrowing strength from the crowd. Most people are terrified of being alone with their thoughts, their dreams, their convictions. They surround themselves with others who think exactly like they do, act exactly like they do, want exactly what they want. They call it friendship, but it's really just fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of being different, fear of being responsible for their own choices. But here's what fear never tells you. Conformity is the graveyard of greatness. When you blend in with everyone else, you disappear. When you think like everyone else, you stop thinking altogether. When you want what everyone else wants, you guarantee you'll get exactly what everyone else gets. Average results, average life, average impact. Standing alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being selective. It means choosing quality over quantity in your relationships. It means surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to grow, not people who make you comfortable staying small. It means building connections based on shared values, not shared fears. The truth is, most people don't want you to stand alone because your independence threatens their dependence. Your courage exposes their cowardice. Your willingness to be different highlights their choice to be the same. When you refuse to follow the crowd, you force others to question why they're following it too. And questions make people uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth lives. Discomfort is where real strength is born. Every muscle in your body grows stronger when it's challenged beyond its comfort zone. Your character works the same way. Your convictions get stronger when they're tested. Your purpose becomes clearer when you're forced to defend it. You were not born to be a copy of someone else. You were born to be an original. You have thoughts that no one else has thought. You have solutions that no one else can see. You have a perspective that this world desperately needs. But none of that matters if you're too afraid to stand alone long enough to develop it. The lighthouse keeper could have turned off his light and gone home early like everyone suggested. He could have saved himself the climb, the effort, the ridicule. But he understood something that changed everything. Solitude breeds clarity, while conformity breeds confusion. When you're alone with your purpose, you can hear it clearly. When you're lost in the crowd, you can't hear anything above the noise. Standing alone isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's preparation for the moment when your unique gift will be exactly what the world needs. It's preparation for the day when your different perspective will save someone's life, change someone's mind, or open someone's eyes. It's preparation for your moment to matter. The question isn't whether you have the ability to make a difference. The question is whether you have the courage to stand alone long enough to discover what that difference looks like. Because until you're willing to stand apart from the crowd, you'll never know what you're truly capable of contributing to it. Now let me tell you about an eagle that forgot it was an eagle. This happened in a small farming village where a young boy found an eagle's egg that had fallen from its nest high on the mountain. Not knowing what else to do, he placed it in the chicken coop with all the other eggs. When that eagle hatched, it grew up surrounded by chickens. It learned to peck at the ground for seeds. It learned to flap its wings just enough to fly a few feet. It learned to be satisfied with the small world of the chicken yard for 3 years. This eagle lived as a chicken. It was fed regularly. It was safe from predators. It had companions who accepted it. Life was comfortable, predictable, secure. But something inside that eagle was restless. Sometimes it would look up at the sky and feel a strange pulling in its chest. Sometimes it would spread its wings and feel like they were meant for something more than short hops to the feeding trough. One day, an old mountain climber passed by the farm and saw this magnificent bird pecking in the dirt with the chickens. He couldn't believe his eyes. He asked the farmer, "Why is that eagle living with your chickens?" The farmer laughed and said, "That's not an eagle anymore. It's been a chicken so long, it doesn't know any different. It's perfectly happy here." But the mountain climber knew better. He gently picked up the eagle and carried it to the top of the barn. "Fly," he whispered. "You are made to soar." The eagle looked down at the chickens below, looked up at the vast sky above, and then jumped back down to the safety of the chicken yard. The farmer smirked. "I told you, it's a chicken now." The next day, the mountain climber returned. This time, he carried the eagle higher up the mountain to a cliff overlooking the valley. Again, he said, "Fly. You were made for this." The eagle trembled, looked back toward the farm where the chickens were safely pecking, looked ahead at the endless expanse of sky, and once again chose the familiar over the magnificent. It scrambled back down to its comfortable prison, but the mountain climber didn't give up. On the third day, he took the eagle to the highest peak, where the wind was strong and the view was breathtaking. This time, as he held the eagle toward the sun, something awakened inside that bird. It felt the wind beneath its wings. It saw the world spread out below like it had never seen before. And finally, it remembered who it really was. It spread those magnificent wings and soared into the sky, never to return to the chicken yard again. You are that eagle. Every single one of you listening to my voice right now is that eagle. You were not designed to peck in the dirt of mediocrity. You were not created to live in the small world of other people's limitations. You were not born to be satisfied with the scraps that fall from average tables. You were made to soar. But here's what happens to most people. They get comfortable in their chicken yards. They find safety in doing what everyone else is doing. They trade their potential for security. They exchange their dreams for acceptance. They choose the familiar struggle over the unknown victory. The tragedy is not that you might fail if you try to fly. The tragedy is that you might succeed at being something you were never meant to be. You might become really good at living below your design. You might master the art of settling. You might perfect the skill of blending in. But deep inside, you know there's more. You feel it when you're alone. You sense it when you're quiet. There's something in you that refuses to be satisfied with pecking for seeds when you were built to hunt from the clouds. There's something in you that knows you were made for heights that chickens can never reach. The choice to stand alone is really the choice to remember who you are. It's the decision to stop living according to chicken rules when you have eagle DNA. It's the courage to leave the safety of the yard for the freedom of the sky. Standing alone means refusing to let other people's limitations become your limitations. It means saying no to their small dreams so you can say yes to your big ones. It means walking away from the crowd that's content to stay on the ground so you can find the wind that will lift you above the clouds. The mountain climber in your life might be a crisis, a disappointment, or a moment of clarity. But whatever carries you to that high place where you finally see who you really are, don't climb back down. Don't return to the chicken yard just because it's familiar. Spread your wings and soar. Let me be honest with you. Standing alone costs something. It's not free. There's a price tag attached to refusing to follow the crowd, and you need to know what you're paying before you make the purchase. But here's what I've learned after years of watching people choose their paths. The price of standing alone is always less than the cost of living a lie. Maria Rodriguez learned this lesson in the hardest way possible. She was a third grade teacher in an inner city school where the administration had given up on the children. The other teachers would come to work, hand out worksheets, collect paychecks, and go home. They had convinced themselves that these kids couldn't learn, that their backgrounds made education impossible, that poverty was an excuse for low expectations. But Maria saw something different. She saw brilliance hidden behind broken systems. She saw potential buried under poor policies. So she started staying late, coming in early, spending her own money on supplies. She created innovative teaching methods while her colleagues criticized her for making the rest of us look bad. She set high standards while they accused her of being unrealistic. She believed in her students while they said she was wasting her time. The loneliness was crushing. She ate lunch alone because the other teachers resented her dedication. Parents questioned her methods because they were different from what everyone else was doing. Even the principal pressured her to tone it down and stop rocking the boat. For 2 years, Maria stood completely alone. Some nights she went home and cried. Some mornings she considered quitting. The easiest thing would have been to give up, hand out those worksheets, and blend in with the crowd of mediocrity. But something inside her refused to quit. And slowly, something beautiful began to happen. Her students' test scores started rising. Their confidence grew. Their behavior improved. Word spread. Other teachers began quietly asking for her advice. Parents started requesting her classroom for their children. The principal who once criticized her now showcased her methods to the district today. Maria's teaching approach has been adopted by schools across the country. Thousands of children are receiving better education because one woman was willing to stand alone when standing with the crowd meant failing the very people she was called to serve. The temporary loneliness of standing for what's right is nothing compared to the permanent regret of standing for what's wrong. The short-term pain of being different is nothing compared to the long-term agony of being the same as everyone else when you were meant to be unique. When you stand alone, yes, you'll face criticism. People will question your motives, doubt your methods, and challenge your convictions. They'll call you stubborn, difficult, unrealistic. They'll try to convince you that your standards are too high, your dreams too big, your expectations too unrealistic. But here's what criticism really is. It's evidence that you're doing something worth talking about. Nobody criticizes mediocrity because mediocrity doesn't threaten anyone. Nobody attacks conformity because conformity doesn't challenge anyone. When people start criticizing your choices, it usually means your choices are making them uncomfortable with their own. Standing alone also means you face moments of doubt. In the quiet hours when the crowd is gone and you're left with just yourself and your convictions, you'll wonder if you're making the right choice. You'll question whether the price is worth the principle. You'll be tempted to compromise just to have company. These moments are not your weakness. They're your test. They're the universe asking you how serious you are about your convictions. They're life-checking to see if your commitment runs deeper than your comfort. The privilege of standing alone is that you get to meet yourself. You discover what you're really made of when all the external support is stripped away. You find strength you didn't know you had. You develop confidence that doesn't depend on other people's approval. You build character that can't be shaken by criticism or changed by circumstances. Most people see solitude as something to escape from. They fill every moment with noise, distractions, other people's voices. They're terrified of quiet because quiet forces them to confront who they really are versus who they pretend to be. But what if I told you that your greatest breakthrough is waiting for you in your greatest solitude? Solitude is not your punishment. It's your preparation room. It's where champions are made, where vision becomes clear, where purpose finds its voice. Every great leader in history had to spend time alone with their thoughts, their dreams, and their calling before they could effectively lead others. When you're alone, something powerful happens. The opinions of others fade into background noise. The pressure to perform disappears. The need to impress evaporates. What's left is the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are and what you're capable of becoming. This is where real strength is born. Think about it. When you're always surrounded by people, you're constantly reacting to their energy, their moods, their expectations. You're like a mirror, reflecting back what others want to see instead of showing your own image. But when you're alone, you stop being a reflection and start being a revelation in those quiet moments. You begin to hear your authentic voice, not the voice that echoes popular opinion, not the voice that says what others want to hear, but the voice that speaks your truth, your values, your vision. This voice has been there all along, but it gets drowned out by the chorus of conformity that surrounds most people's daily lives. Solitude also teaches you self-reliance when there's no one else to lean on. You discover muscles you never knew you had. When there's no one else to blame, you take responsibility for your choices. When there's no one else to make decisions for you, you develop the confidence to trust your own judgment. This is why people who are comfortable standing alone often become natural leaders. They've learned to think independently. They've developed the ability to make tough decisions without needing a committee to validate every choice. They've built the inner strength that others instinctively want to follow. But here's the beautiful paradox. The more comfortable you become with being alone, the more attractive you become to the right people. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't need your approval, but genuinely wants your company. There's something compelling about a person who has found their center and operates from that place of inner confidence. People are drawn to those who stand alone, not because they're trying to be different, but because they're brave enough to be authentic. Authenticity is rare in a world full of copies. Genuine confidence is precious in a culture of manufactured personalities. When you're truly comfortable in your own skin, others want to learn how to be comfortable in theirs. Your solitude becomes a classroom where you learn lessons that can't be taught in crowds. You learn patience as you wait for the right opportunities instead of jumping at the first ones that come along. You learn discernment as you choose quality relationships over quantity connections. You learn wisdom as you reflect on your experiences instead of immediately rushing to the next distraction. Standing alone also develops your decision-making abilities like nothing else can. When you can't poll the crowd or follow the majority, you're forced to develop your own internal compass. You learn to trust your instincts, analyze situations independently, and take responsibility for the outcomes. These are the skills that separate leaders from followers, innovators from imitators, originals from copies. The strength you develop in solitude becomes unshakable because it's not dependent on external circumstances. It doesn't crumble when people disagree with you because it wasn't built on their agreement. It doesn't fade when trends change because it wasn't fashioned by trends. It endures because it's rooted in truth, watered by conviction, and strengthened by testing. Now, I want to tell you a story that will change how you think about standing alone forever. This is the story of a man named David Walker, who worked as a night security guard at a factory in Detroit. Every night for 15 years, David walked those empty hallways, checked those locked doors, and protected property that wasn't his for people who barely knew his name. But David had a secret. During his breaks, he would sit in the factory cafeteria and write. Not reports or security logs, but stories. Stories about hope, about dreams, about people who overcame impossible odds. Stories that came from somewhere deep inside him that he couldn't explain and didn't fully understand. For years, David kept his writing hidden. His co-workers would have laughed. His family would have worried. His supervisors would have questioned his focus on the job. So he wrote in silence, in solitude, in the secret corners of his heart where dreams live when they're not ready to face the world. One night, a fire broke out in the factory office building. While David was calling the fire department and evacuating the few remaining workers, he saw something that broke his heart. The flames were consuming the company library, where employees could check out books during their lunch breaks. Hundreds of books were turning to ash. And David realized that all those stories, all that knowledge, all that inspiration was being lost forever. That's when something inside David shifted. He realized that he had been hoarding his own stories the same way. He had been keeping his gift locked away in the security of secrecy instead of sharing it with people who might need to hear what he had to say the next week. David did something that everyone thought was crazy. He took his savings and published his first collection of stories. Not through a big publishing house, not with professional marketing, not with anyone's approval or support. Just him, his stories, and the courage to stand alone with his convictions. His family was confused. David, you're a security guard, not a writer. His friends were concerned. David, you're wasting your money on a pipe dream. His co-workers were skeptical. David, nobody's going to read stories written by someone like you. For months, David stood completely alone. He sold books from the trunk of his car. He gave readings at coffee shops where 3 people showed up. He mailed copies to bookstores that sent them back unopened. The rejection was constant. The criticism was harsh. And the loneliness was overwhelming. But David had learned something in all those years of night shifts and solitude. His truth didn't need anyone else's permission to be valid. His gift didn't require anyone else's approval to be real. His purpose didn't depend on anyone else's understanding to be important. Slowly, something beautiful began to happen. One reader became 10. 10 became 100. 100 became 1,000. People started sharing David's stories because they touched something real, something authentic, something that could only come from someone who had learned to stand alone with their truth. Today, David Walker's books have sold over 2 million copies. He speaks to audiences around the world. He has inspired countless people to pursue their dreams despite the odds. But none of that would have happened if he hadn't first learned to value his own voice more than other people's opinions. The most powerful lesson from David's story is this: your truth doesn't become more true when other people believe it. And it doesn't become less true when they don't. Truth is not decided by popular vote. Purpose is not determined by public opinion. Your calling is not subject to other people's approval. Living your truth, regardless of the crowd, means making decisions based on your values, not on what's popular. It means choosing integrity over acceptance, authenticity over approval, conviction over comfort. It means being willing to be misunderstood by people who don't share your vision rather than being clearly understood by people who don't challenge your growth. This is not about being rebellious for the sake of rebellion. This is not about being different just to stand out. This is about being true to who you were created to be, even when that truth doesn't fit neatly into other people's categories or expectations. When you live your truth regardless of the crowd, you give other people permission to do the same. You become living proof that it's possible to be authentic in a world that rewards conformity. You show others that they don't have to sacrifice their uniqueness for acceptance, their dreams for security, their convictions for comfort. But here's what you must understand. Living your truth is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. Every morning you wake up, you have to decide again whether you're going to be yourself or someone else's version of who you should be. Every interaction, every opportunity, every challenge gives you another chance to choose authenticity over acceptance. The crowd will always be there, offering you the safety of sameness. The pressure to conform will never completely disappear. The temptation to trade your uniqueness for belonging will present itself again and again. But each time you choose to stand alone with your truth, you become stronger, clearer, more confident in who you were meant to be. Your legacy is not what people remember about how well you fit in. Your legacy is what they remember about how courageously you stood out. It's not about how many people agreed with you. It's about how many people you inspired to think for themselves. It's not about how popular you were. It's about how authentic you were. So I challenge you today. Stop waiting for permission to be yourself. Stop looking for validation for your dreams. Stop seeking approval for your convictions. The world doesn't need another copy of someone else. The world needs the original you. Stand alone if you must, but stand. Walk your path even if you walk it by yourself. Live your truth even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because at the end of your life, you won't regret the moments you stood alone for what you believed in. You'll only regret the moments you stood with the crowd and betrayed what you knew was right. Never be afraid to stand alone. Your solitude today is preparing you for your significance tomorrow. Your courage to be different is developing the strength others will one day follow. Your willingness to stand apart from the crowd is what will ultimately allow you to stand before the crowd as someone worth listening to. The choice is yours. Will you stand alone with courage, or will you fall in line with comfort? Will you be an original, or will you be a copy? Will you live your truth, or will you live someone else's lie? Stand alone. Stand strong. Stand true. Your authentic self is the greatest gift you can give to a world full of imitations.